when Paul wrote this letter, he introduced himself in the beginning as Paul, bondservant of Christ. So he said he was a bondservant of Christ. Why, do you think? He tells us to live a life proclaiming Jesus is my master. Why? Because everybody serves someone. It's either yourself, it could be someone else, it could be the enemy, or it could be Christ. And the only one who's qualified to do it, the most qualified one in the room, right? That's Christ. He's the only one who deserves for us to voluntarily submit ourselves to him. That's good. So in Matthew, Christ talks to some people. He's saying, in Matthew, Christ is talking to some people, and he says, there's going to be some of you guys who come to the judgment seat at the end, and you say, Lord, Lord, we cast out demons in your name, and we perform miracles in your name, and we preached the gospel. And God's going to look at them, and he's going to say, I never knew you, and he's going to send them away. It's not about what we say, and it's not about giving God lip service or praying a prayer. It's about a life and a relationship with him. It's about making him the master of our lives. So who's packing your chute? Who, is it you? Is it God? You know, who would you rather have packing your chute is the question. I don't know if this sounds a bit intense, you know, a little oppressive, like complete submission, slavery kind of stuff. But I mean, our idea of submission in this culture is a little bit twisted because we don't have the reference points that Paul was really leaning on. This culture is all about like getting yourself to the top and climbing and making the grade and all that stuff. And that's not what it's about. You know, Paul proclaimed gladly, I'm a bondservant of Christ. He was proud of that, to be bound, to have voluntarily tied himself to Christ in that way. And it's a wonderful freedom. It's a great life. So then, back to my story. I was sitting on the edge of the deck. You know, we were flying 9,000 feet in the air. My feet were dangling above Davis, 9,000 feet up. The side of the plane was like rolled up like this giant garage door. And this crazy expert guy was strapped to my back. And I'll tell you at this point, the last thing your human brain is telling you to do is jump out of the plane. Like, it's not really evolutionarily advantageous to want to jump out of moving planes, right? Your genes just don't get propagated very much. So, sorry, bio major, it's kind of happening. So, then there's something inside you kind of that like says jump, you know, maybe it's like wired in when you signed on the line or something. But then the guy behind you jumps and suddenly you're falling. And that's kind of how you get out of the plane. So you have no idea what's happening. You don't really know which way is up. It's super loud. This is the free fall part of the jump. You know that there were two things that you were supposed to remember, and that's all you can remember because you left those two things up in the plane with your stomach when you jumped. And so you're falling, and there's two things, and something about your feet, I think, was one of them. I think, you know, but there's one thing that you're guaranteed at this point, and that is that gravity is going to take over. There's no getting around it. You can't forget that. It just happens. So then Paul says, that's it. You're not doing anything. You're simply calling out to God, trusting him to do it for you. That's salvation. So it's actually something the Lord has been teaching me a lot lately. And by lately, I mean kind of like the last 5 to 10 years. Really, truly, it's kind of a life lesson. I'm sure it'll continue. But the more I try to let things go, oh gosh, this isn't gonna work. Okay. The more I tried to let things go, I tried really hard, you know, I just couldn't do it. And I would be like, okay, I have this thing to lay down. Lay it down,
would just like get frustrated, you know? And I'd be like, okay, what's the magic password? What's the formula that I could like lay this down? Maybe if I like get really serious or something, I don't know. And then I would come to a point where I would just like fall at the feet of Jesus, you know, and you just be there and you're like, God, I can't give it up, I tried, but we're just gonna have to get past that because I can't and I'm trying, and you know, I just fall. And then before I know it, I'm free.
And so I've come to learn that the frustration that I get in those times is really a good trigger for me to basically look at myself and step back and say, okay, why am I frustrated right now? And I get frustrated. Some people get angry. I just tend to get frustrated. But like, you know, I look at it and I say, what am I not yielding? Because frustration is just a reflection of me saying, I'm not in control of the situation right now. And then God says, yeah, but that's okay. You know, like I am. And so I have to look at why I'm frustrated in those situations. And then I just ask God, I say, God, what am I not letting go of? Or if I know, often I know exactly what I'm not letting go of. I say, God, this is really hard to let go of, you know? And he listens and he says, yeah, I know. He says, I know it's hard. I've been there, you know, remember? I was a human. And he said, but I also want you to remember, like, do you remember when you were reading in the Bible and it said I'd take care of you? Or it said I'd be the strength when you're weak? Or I'd provide for you always? And he just brings these things to mind and I go, oh yeah, that's right. All right, okay, you take it then. Take it. You know, it's yours. I don't want it anymore. And then it's not something that I forget, but it's something that I just hold with an open hand, and God can take it. And so that's what it's about. It's about walking with God, just walking with him through the trials, through the tough times, knowing his heart and surrendering. I'm not saying we have to be perfect in this. No one is. But we need to be running toward Jesus, always, you know, because you can either be running toward him or you can be running away from him. And I think about Mary and Martha. And you know, Martha tried really hard. She loved Jesus, she did. But she tried really hard, and she served him well. But Jesus would call to her. He would say, Martha, come out of the kitchen, come sit with me. You know, come be with me. Put down the hummus. Come and sit at my feet, come into the living room, and just hang out with me. You know, that's what he wanted. He wants our heart. He wants us to just live life with him. And he promises that if you draw near to him, he'll draw near to you. So rest in him and let it go, you know, just hold it with an open hand. And Jason Gray, I don't know if you guys know him, he's got a new song, not really new, but his newest, I think. And I love a line in it. It says, it's more like falling in love and less something to believe in. More like losing my heart than giving my allegiance. And he's talking about Jesus, and I just think it's a great example of like what it should be like, you know? It's not about finding a formula or anything like that. It's just falling in love with Jesus, living life with him. So what are you holding on to, you know, when you feel that frustration? I don't know, in the song at the beginning of the service, if God brought something specific to mind or not, but if he did, just what is it, you know? It's important to hold your life, your whole life, with an open hand. You're just like a steward of it, you know? Like the steward of Gondor. Yes. I always think of that word. Surrender is necessary. Because surrender is necessary to truly find the freedom that Christ offers. It really is. So, okay, so you're back. Steward of Gondor. So you're flying through the air. Flying through the air. Oh my gosh, the wind is like ripping your cheeks off your jaw. Basically, it's a permanent smile. They think you're smiling.